Anne Askew, her life is not just a story, but a saga of faith, heart-wrenching betrayal, and an endurance that leaves you in awe. Imagine being hunted down, not just by the authorities, but by the very people who are supposed to love you, your family. Every decision you make, every word you utter, weighed upon, twisted, and used against you. In the volatile world of Tudor England, Anne Askew was a God-fearing, learned woman, one with whom the most powerful figures plotted against. Yet it was her bravery that would turn out to be the plot twist in her life, a bravery that would push her beyond the limits of endurance, forcing her to hold on to her beliefs when most would have crumbled. Few can truly comprehend the extent of her resilience, but her untold story of defiance began in the most unlikely of places. Anne was born in 1521 in the peaceful countryside of Lincolnshire, a place where the soft chirping of birds, the earthy smell after a spring rain, and the rustling of trees formed a tranquil background to a childhood that would soon be marred by tension, turmoil, and a profound inner struggle. Raised in a deeply religious Catholic family, Anne's life seemed destined to follow a traditional path. She was taught to embrace the Catholic faith, to follow its rituals and customs without question. Yet from an early age, Anne was not content with simply following. She began to question, to seek understanding that went beyond what she was told. Picture her, alone in the flickering candlelight, young and curious, turning the pages of her Bible in search of answers that the priests and her family could not give. As she read, Anne began to see something that troubled her deeply, a great contradiction between the teachings of the Church and the words written in the Scriptures. The doctrine of transubstantiation, the idea that the bread and wine of communion literally became Christ's body and blood, was one of the most troubling. Anne struggled to reconcile this with what she had read in the Bible. She couldn't ignore what she saw as the Church's manipulation of faith, nor could she silence the growing dissonance in her mind. In a time when even the thought of questioning religious dogma was seen as a grave offense, let alone seeking knowledge from the Bible, Anne's thirst for understanding was an act of rebellion. Women, especially, were not meant to seek the Scriptures, let alone challenge the religious authorities. Anne's defiance was not only intellectual, it was a threat to the very foundation of the system in which she was raised. During the reign of Henry VIII, England was torn apart by religious division. Henry had famously broken from the Catholic Church and established the Church of England, but Catholic influence still ran deep. Any form of resistance was seen as dangerous. Anne's questioning was not just defiance against religious dogma, but an act of defiance against a world order. Then came Anne's marriage to Thomas Kyme, a devout Catholic. At first, their marriage seemed like a natural, if traditional, union. But soon, their differing beliefs caused a rift between them. Thomas, unwavering in his faith, could not accept Anne's rejection of Catholic doctrine. The moment of betrayal came when Anne refused to recant her beliefs. In an agonizing twist of fate, Thomas cast Anne out, leaving her to walk away with nothing but her Bible and an unyielding will. Imagine the heartache. Not just the rejection of her husband, but the realization that those closest to her, those she had trusted with her very soul, did not understand her inner turmoil. The very family she had grown up with, the ones who had nurtured her, now stood as her accusers. Yet this was the point at which Anne's defiance began to burn even brighter. Alone and abandoned, she chose to stand tall and not fall prey to the despair that could have easily consumed her. With nowhere left to turn, Anne fled to London, diving headlong into the Protestant Reformation, a movement that was both dangerous and deadly in a time when religious thought could be as fatal as any sword. Anne quickly became known for her outspoken views, attending meetings with other Protestant reformers, engaging in fiery debates about faith, salvation, and the Church's power. It was here, among the passionate discussions and the growing fervor, that Anne's place in the movement was solidified. She was a woman in a time when women were not supposed to be outspoken on matters of faith. Yet Anne's voice was one that would not be silenced. She became a key figure in the Protestant circles, known for her courage and conviction. But with Anne's growing influence, the perception of her as a threat to those in power also grew. To both the Catholic Church and Henry VIII's government, Anne was a dangerous heretic, one whose influence could shake the foundations of their carefully constructed world. Her very existence was a challenge to the power structures of her time, but her most insidious opposition came not from the crown or the church, but from within her own home. Anne's stepmother, a devout Catholic, betrayed her to the authorities, labeling her a heretic. This betrayal stung the most, for it came from someone who was supposed to protect her. In 1545, Anne was arrested and brought before the most powerful man in England, Lord Chancellor Thomas Wriothesley. The interrogation that followed was designed not just to break Anne's body, but her spirit. They sought to extract names from her, names of her fellow reformers. But Anne's resistance was something the authorities could not anticipate. Day after day, she endured questioning and torture, yet she never betrayed anyone. Even under the most brutal of torments, Anne's faith remained unshaken. Anne was stretched on the rack, her body contorted and stretched beyond its limits. Her joints dislocated, her bones cracked under the unrelenting pressure. Yet even as her body was torn apart, Anne remained silent. She did not scream. Her mind remained focused on her faith, her belief in something greater than her own suffering. The torturers, the interrogators, they could not break her resolve. They had faced many prisoners before, but never one like Anne Askew. It was here, in the darkest moment of her life, that Anne made one of the most powerful statements ever uttered. "I would rather die than break my faith." Those words, simple yet profound, shook her captors to their core. A woman, tortured beyond measure, yet unbroken in spirit. It was not just Anne's endurance that marked her, but her unyielding faith in the face of a corrupt system. Anne was condemned to die by burning at the stake. On July 16th, 1546, she was led to Smithfield, London, where she would meet her end. By the time Anne reached the place of execution, her body had been ravaged by torture. She could no longer walk, but even as the flames rose around her, Anne's faith did not waver. She did not recant. She did not beg for mercy. She stood resolute, unwavering. As the fire took hold of her, Anne Askew became a partial story of faith, betrayal, and bravery. Living in this modern world has always meant towing the line, fitting the mold, silencing the dissenter, and penalizing those who dare question the status quo. And then along comes Anne Askew, a jolting reminder of those very short, flickering moments when true strength shows up in standing, not in yielding against the mountain of overwhelming odds. She has taught us that resistance to oppression is not only a courageous act, it is an act of love, first and foremost, to truth and to justice and to the next generation. The story of Anne Askew is a continuing inspiration to those who, even in these times, face persecution and adversity with unshakable determination in standing resolutely against fear. To what does her example call? Would any one of us be found steadfast enough? The threat of martyrdom notwithstanding, yes, at times even their reputation or soul for standing in what was patently right, suffering under coercion and torture to betray the trust, just as this dear lady has suffered. Think about that. How far would you go in defense of faith, belief, or principles? Share with us in the comments section below. We'd love to hear your take on it. And if Anne's amazing story has inspired you, then don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so that you won't miss the future updates. We'll be continuing to go into the life of people such as Anne Askew, people whose unshakable resolve altered the course of history. Thanks for watching today. Together, we'll keep finding the stories that count and the lessons they leave behind.